Welcome back to Pelangi 21. Today I will show you Fellow Travelers Episode 7. Episode 7 begins with the death of Harvey Milk. In 1979, Tim has been released from prison. He and Frankie work as a clinical social worker. Tim gets a postcard from Hawk inviting him to Fire Island, while Frankie wants him to stay because he needs him there for the upcoming protest. Tim still can't forget Hawk, and he wants to leave. Tim calls Lucy, telling her that Hawk might be in trouble, and he seems to ask permission to see him. Lucy is busy with her pregnant daughter, and can't think about the matter of Hawk. She gives Hawk an ultimatum to stop drinking or get out of the house, and Hawk decides to leave. Hawk is grieving the death of Jackson, who overdosed on heroin 6 months prior after a long battle with substance abuse. He escapes to Fire Island and uses drugs to suppress his grief. Tim follows him there, and he is reunited with Hawk. Hawk lives there with his friends and rent boy Craig. They tell Tim he is not allowed to ask about the background of the people there, because outside the island they have their own lives. Tim talks about his involvement in helping gay people. Later, Tim meets with Craig, and tells him about Jackson. Craig replies he knows about it. Marcus is a professor at a public college, and struggling to find the line between educating his students on milk and bringing his sexuality into the classroom. He doesn't protect Jerome, who is being bullied. Kimberly asks Lucy about Hawk and Tim's relationship, but Lucy says she will have to ask her father. Hawk and Tim reconnect on the beach, catching up with a warm conversation. After that, they stroll through the meat rack, the foliage-covered path on the island where sex is essentially encouraged. Marcus tells Frankie about Jerome, but Frankie doesn't agree with Marcus' actions in not defending him. At dinner, Tim tries to connect with Hawk, who is doing his best to avoid talking about his family and especially Jackson's death. Hawk tells Tim that he wants to put the deed of his Fire Island house in Tim's name, which Tim correctly deduces is an attempt to hide Hawk's sexuality from his family even after he's dead. Given the number of substances Hawk is consuming daily, that time might come sooner than later, and Tim remembers that there is always an ulterior motive to Hawk's pleas to reconnect. When Tim tries to leave, he finds Craig admiring a photo of Jackson hidden in Hawk's bedside table. Craig confesses that Hawk had never told him about Jackson, or any part of his family life. Tim decides to stay just a little bit longer, letting Hawk hold his hand through a night of pleasure. They're dancing at a club. Kimberly finds a letter from Tim, and calls his place of work. The receptionist says Tim isn't there, and Kimberly finds out that the place provided help for gay people. Jerome comes to health center to find help. Hawk and his friends leave Tim alone. The crowd stops as they learn that Dan White, Harvey Milk's killer, has just received a fluffy verdict that buried the intent of his crimes. Marcus and Frankie argue about whether they should go to the protest with the others. Jerome listens to their bickering. Tim is angry with Hawk and Craig for leaving him alone. The tensions between the three come to a head, but Hawk quells them by kissing both men. They are having sex, until Hawk spots the photo of his son, carelessly left out on the table by Craig. Hawk tackles Craig to the bed and chokes him, promising to kill him, but Craig fights him off and storms out. Hawk collapses on the mattress, no longer able to avoid the reality of his situation. Tim softly comforting Hawk and hugging him. Hawk pleads for Tim to let him die. Marcus finds Jerome, and Jerome tells him how his father almost killed him for being gay. Marcus wants to tell his father but he can't. They argue about whether gay people should fight for their rights or not. Police then raid bar where gay people gather. Marcus protects Jerome from a brutal police attack. Kimberly and Lucy look back at the footage about Jackson. Meanwhile, Hawk tells Tim about Jackson. They tried everything to get him clean, but it didn't work. Tim attempts to comfort Hawk once more, telling him that his love for his son was never a lie, and that his love counts for something. Marcus meets Frankie, who says that they won't just keep quiet. They kiss, and stand together against the police. In the morning, Tim sees news about violence between police and gay people. As he's packing his things, one of Hawk's housemates tells him, "There will be people that will say you just get over him if you want to be happy, and they will be right. But it will also be the stupidest thing anyone ever says to you." Tim goes downstairs to catch his ferry and finds Hawk doing drugs. Tim is angry with Hawk for being selfish, and says that he is done with him. Later, Hawk calls Kimberly to apologize, telling her that he's coming home. In 1986, Hawk is still waiting for Tim at the hospital. The doctor informs Hawk that Tim has had another seizure. Hawk kisses Tim on the forehead and looks longingly at the man who saved his life. This episode is very touching and heartbreaking. Hawk, who had lost his way, was helped by Tim even though they had not seen each other for years. The two of them still couldn't forget each other. I thought the line delivered by Hawk's housemate was extraordinary, because it openly acknowledged a human truth without trying to complicate it. There was great sadness at the end of this story, as Tim, someone who brought nothing but kindness and love to this world, lay dying in a hospital bed. Fellow travelers begins to feel real about how gay people try to survive and struggle with their identity. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, and turn on notification.